Faulkner. Thank you for allowing us to feature the work of one of your most wonderful teachers and her students in our project. The intention of our book is to serve as an instructional framework that will assist teachers with selecting and discussing diverse literature with their students, ultimately leading toward getting them to think and embrace empathy and action for social justice. And so the collection of the books are organized around different topics and themes related to diversity in a broad sense, related to things like race and gender and class, sexual orientation, language, religion, ethnicity, all kinds of different topics under that big umbrella of diversity. And so to be able to do this work, administrative support is absolutely paramount for teachers to be able to really feel comfortable to have these kinds of conversations with their students. So can you share some ways that you support teachers, specifically the teacher that we're featuring in our project, as she does this work with her students?
I think the best way that I support my teachers is that I trust their judgment for their students' needs. Ms. Cameron is a superstar here at Roebuck. We have lots of superstar teachers here and students. I think another thing that I do is I allow them the autonomy to make those instructional decisions on how their students best learn. And also I provide them a lot of flexibility and a lot of training for some of the best practices in education, such as problem-based learning.
Wonderful. And problem-based learning is the heart of this work with the books, where the students are exploring characters and thinking about how they can then take action to make a difference in the world around them through projects. So can you tell us a little bit about the role of parent communication as a factor in teacher success with doing this kind of work?
Yes, parent, student, and teacher communication is vital in any project like this. For us, having the teacher and the parents work as a team, it has enhanced the students' learning and also helps to get the message out in the home and further out in the community.
Are there ever times that, one of the things that we think about is maybe a concern about controversial topics and how parents might react to some of those kinds of topics that they may or may not feel as comfortable with? Do you have any suggestions for teachers who might be fearful of approaching those kinds of topics related to diversity and how parents might respond?
I think, that we are faced with that as educators, and I think a lot of what Ms. Cameron does, she's already built that relationship and trust with parents before. So I think some of those kind of topics, it would be, the teacher maybe talking to the parents beforehand, at least a phone call if she can't even get them in for a parent conference,
Right.
just to make sure that they know that we're looking out for the best interest of our students, but also, that we're trying to touch on these topics which are, so controversial.
Yeah. So Ms. Cameron's already done quite a bit of work with her kids, and I believe they've shared some of the projects that they created with the administrative team and their peers in other classes. And so have you noticed any differences in the kinds of conversations or the types of things that the students are saying and doing as a result of the work Ms. Cameron has done?
What I noticed with the students that shared their projects with me in Ms. Cameron's class, they're very passionate about what they have researched. It is obvious that it's very student driven. They could tell me, why they wanted to do those things or chose certain people to research. They could tell me why they chose a certain presentation style for different audiences. And I think it has definitely made an impact on our students here and our, the administrative staff that came in to see it, the students that other groups shared with, and just our community on the whole. So,
what are some of the changes that you've noticed in terms of behavior related to kind of the outcome of this within the classroom or the school or even the community?
I think that it is, they're able to respect one another's differences more. Whereas maybe before they didn't see, even slight differences, that now that they can respect that and just form a closer bond here at school
Yeah.
for one another.
It's so important
Mhm.
to create that community and the culture here.
Mhm.
Thank you. Do you have any advice or tips for other administrators or teachers who might be interested in doing similar work in their schools?
I think they should just embrace it and trust those teachers and trust that the students can do it.
Right.
I think when we give students that trust and allow them some flexibility to make those decisions, that's when they really start to embrace their learning. So I would say, sometimes it's hard to kind of let go, but it's also very good to with a teacher as a facilitator. So as an administrator, I understand sometimes that it would be difficult to do, but I say, just embrace it and allow the students to have some control and flexibility in what they're learning and, and how they want to share that.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. One last question in response to that. So, we're in the season right now, especially with testing, right?
Mhm.
And there's this high stakes testing, and I know that, this tends to be a focus a lot of times. And one of the things that we hear from teachers often is that we're fearful to take on something new, because we're fearful that's more of an add-on. So how could we, I really like how you say we need to trust the teachers to do this kind of work. Do you have any suggestions for how we can reframe what we're already doing to embrace this kind of work so that it's not viewed as an add-on or a barrier, but to trust the teachers to
Yes.
naturally integrate it?
And teachers, administrators, we all are, worried about testing.
Mhm.
But to me, that's not the most important thing in the outcome of a school year for a student. We want our students to be successful and confident, and we want them to, be in control of some of their learning. So I would say, we are a STEAM school, so we do a lot of problem-based learning with integration. And it is hard for our teachers. We've been working on this for about 4 years now, and just trying not to look at everything as a subject. But when we
Right.
look at it as integration, it does take more time for planning. Another way that I support my teachers is to allow them some time like that throughout the school year, But if they look at it as an integration, when the students are doing all that integrated work, it's not just they're learning, vocabulary or things that are all isolated. They're making those connections, which I think helps the students to really understand their learning better.
Yeah.
I would say not just to look at those test scores. To me, as a principal, I believe that's going to help our students in the long run with their test scores because they really have internalized their learning. They can relate it to other things. So I would say, just to, continue to work on that. It is hard work. I know from my teachers when they're doing those PBL units, it takes time. So I would rather them to take the time for our students to really learn something, take ownership of it, share it, because I think that's something they're really going to remember that's going to impact them for the rest of their lives, rather than just, hitting here and there on different subjects and standards.
I couldn't agree more.
So.
Thank you so much
Okay.
for your time.
Thank
I know you're
you.
so busy.